Well, AOC, and let me know if you believe this, is saying that MAGA Republicans are coming up to her and say, man, I was wrong about Trump. I'm with socialism now. Do you buy that?
Absolutely not. In fact, I'd like to see some of the people who actually said that to AOC and check their ballots and see if they actually voted for President Trump, because I can assure you MAGA Republicans oppose everything that AOC and the modern day communist Democrat Party stands for. Mass migration and open borders like we saw under the Biden administration.
AOC now claims a wave of MAGA voters are regretfully leaving Trump, walking away from him and preparing to support Democrats fully loyal to the DNC in 2028.
Men and women's sports is something MAGA Republicans and frankly the whole country rejects. It's a 90-10 issue, taxing people to death and taking their money and giving the majority of your income back to the government. That's a horrible idea that has not worked for thousands of years.
Karoline Leavitt completely rejects that idea. She says AOC is absolutely wrong and just delivered one of the sharpest comebacks you'll probably see anywhere this whole year.
I fully welcome Trump voters into our coalition. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, but just hear me out. I cannot tell you, it just happened to me like 2 weeks ago. I can't tell you how many times someone has pulled me aside and said either I was once a big Trump voter and a Trump supporter, but then I started to kind of expand my world and where I got information, and now I've learned and now I've changed and I'm with you.
That was AOC's message when she went onto social media. In her view, many Trump voters support him for one basic reason. They sit in front of Fox News all day, absorb talking points, and never try to think for themselves. In her version of events, it could not possibly be about money struggles under Biden. Rising grocery bills, high gas prices, or rent that became impossible to afford. No, not that. She also brushes off the idea that voters moved toward Trump because of the wave of woke policies coming from the Biden administration, policies many Americans see as out of touch with daily life. For AOC, it is simply media-driven brainwashing, clear and direct. But that confident explanation did not go unchallenged. Karoline Leavitt heard AOC's comments and had no plan to let them slide. What followed was a strong response that flipped AOC's story around and pointed out the pride behind it.
President just dealt with Chuck Schumer, and President Trump and Republicans shellacked Chuck Schumer and the entire Democrat Party. After 43 days of Chuck standing out there trying to bravely hold the country hostage and inflict massive pain on the American public, Chuck got absolutely nothing. And now the knives are out for him. As you can see, Jesse, as you just perfectly laid out in your monologue, the Democrat Party is in complete disarray. And the truth is, they have been for 10 years since President Trump came on the political scene.
And that is difficult to deny. The DNC has seemed unsettled ever since Trump announced he was running for president again. From that moment on, it has looked like one rushed action after another, with clear planning replaced by uncertainty. This may explain the constant accusations aimed at him, followed by dramatic investigations and courtroom fights that promised major discoveries but finally delivered very little. It also explains the Russia collusion story that dominated headlines for years, a claim many Republicans argue never proved what Democrats suggested. It further explains the steady flow of insults and harsh labels, as if criticism could stand in for a strong case. Yet through everything, the controversies, the court cases, the media pressure, nothing appears to stick. Time after time, the efforts failed to divide Trump supporters or weaken his drive. If anything, they seem to increase his backing and show how unsettled his opponents have become.
They don't stand for anything good. They just stand for Donald Trump is bad. That's the only thing that unifies their party. And now you see how far they are moving to the left. They ran Senator Gillibrand and Senator Manchin out of town. Now they're running Chucky Schumer out of town. It's too bad he turned into a Palestinian. He did it for nothing, like President Trump says, because his own party is turning against him. And the Democrat Party is truly becoming a full-blown communist party.
Karoline Leavitt directly challenges Democratic Party leaders, saying they have lost real control over their own supporters. She argues the party has moved so far left that even longtime leaders like Chuck Schumer now appear out of step with the activists they once led. In her view, the most extreme groups are now in charge. Instead of leaders setting the agenda, it is the loudest and most intense voices online and in public shaping the path forward. Leavitt says Democratic officials are being sidelined quickly because they are judged not woke enough by their own base. One careless comment, One small sign of compromise, and they are immediately called sellouts or traitors. To her, this internal conflict shows a party turning against itself, focused more on passing purity tests than on governing. And while Democrats argue among themselves, Leavitt believes voters are noticing, with many quietly stepping back from a party that no longer seems clear about its values.
Men in women's sports is something MAGA Republicans and frankly the whole country rejects. It's a 90-10 issue, taxing people to death and taking their money and giving the majority of your income back to the government. That's a horrible idea that has not worked for thousands of years. MAGA Republicans know it, and that's why they overwhelmingly voted to re-elect President Trump.
Karoline responds with careful focus, strongly challenging AOC's claim that MAGA voters secretly regret supporting Donald Trump. She does not just dismiss it. She asks for proof, real names, solid numbers, clear facts, and according to her, none are provided. Instead of relying on vague stories or online fantasies, Karoline explains clearly why millions of Americans chose Trump from the beginning. It was not by chance. It was a reaction, a pushback against strong woke policies promoted by the DNC that left regular voters upset and uncertain. Many Americans opposed men playing in women's sports, raised concerns about medical transitions for minors, and still feel uncomfortable with the party moving toward open socialism. Karoline stresses that ignoring those worries will not make them disappear. It only drives more voters away. And if Democrats keep moving in that direction, she cautions the political consequences could be severe.
MAGA Republicans know it, and that's why they overwhelmingly voted to re-elect President Trump. And a Democrat that you had in your monologue actually was right about one thing. I don't know his name, but I give him credit for his statement where he said that the Republican Party under President Trump is the party of the working man and woman. And because of President Trump's pro-growth, America First policies, he has spoken directly to the hearts of the forgotten men and women across this country. And that's who the Republican Party is today, thanks to him.
Yes, Leavitt makes a strong point, and this is something Democrats still avoid facing. Trump did not win by seeking social media applause or approval from elites. He talked directly to middle America, to undecided voters, to people who felt overlooked, talked down to, and pressured from every direction. He connected with working class frustration, with people worried about jobs, costs, safety, and stability using words they could clearly relate to. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris and the DNC focus mainly on coastal elites, major donors, and the loudest progressive voices online. Rather than addressing everyday financial concerns, voters often heard speeches, criticism, and moral lectures. That difference mattered. When average Americans felt ignored or ridiculed, Trump made them feel acknowledged and understood, even if they disagreed with him on certain issues. Ultimately, elections are not won through slogans or polished messaging. They are won by building trust with ordinary people facing real challenges. That connection is where Trump found success and where the DNC struggled noticeably.
Well, we'll have to see. And I'm very curious. I'll have to find out from our great Attorney General, Pam Bondi, if the Trump DOJ is continuing this investigation that the Biden DOJ launched. Jesse, it's a good question, and we will get on that. But as for Gavin Newsom, I was not surprised to see him in Brazil, traveling the world, probably on the taxpayer dime, talking about climate change when his state, California, has some of the highest energy costs in the entire country.
Karoline Leavitt also directs criticism at Gavin Newsom, pointing to what she describes as clear political inconsistency. She criticizes Newsom for frequently speaking about environmental protection while leading one of the costliest energy systems in the country. Leavitt argues it is simple to promote climate goals from a stage while everyday families struggle to handle rising electricity and fuel costs just to maintain their homes. She believes Newsom's environmental plans may appear responsible in theory, but they become difficult in practice, especially for working-class Californians who cannot afford solar systems, electric cars, or expensive alternatives. Instead of improving daily life, she argues these measures are making it more expensive and challenging. Leavitt presents it as an example of political disconnect, leaders promoting appealing environmental language while ordinary residents carry the financial burden. In her opinion, Californians are not opposing environmental care. They are opposing policies that prioritize ideology over affordability and practical judgment.
Some of the highest gasoline prices in the entire country, despite President Trump's efforts. And they are working to bring down oil and gas prices in this country, to drill, baby, drill, to unleash American energy dominance. Gavin has done so much damage to his state with the Green New scam and with this utopian pursuit of climate change that is just so false. It's built on a fallacy that he has run up energy costs in his state that people are fleeing his state.
Karoline argues her point clearly, and she says the evidence is becoming harder to overlook. Families and companies are leaving California in increasing numbers, frustrated by high taxes, complex regulations, and overwhelming bureaucracy. For small business owners, each day feels like a constant struggle. Licenses, regulatory costs, and heavy tax payments accumulate until operating becomes unsustainable. Meanwhile, Newsom, in her perspective, appears largely unaffected. Instead of reducing pressure or adjusting strategy, she claims he continues reinforcing policies that increase challenges for businesses in pursuit of political objectives and public image. The result follows naturally. Businesses move to states offering lower taxes, simpler rules, and more supportive environments. Karoline describes it as a clear leadership problem. Employment opportunities decline, neighborhoods weaken, and government revenue decreases. Still, California officials often respond with surprise at outcomes that many believe were predictable. Eventually, she argues, refusing to acknowledge consequences begins to resemble disregard rather than responsible governance.
So maybe he should leave Brazil and stop talking about this issue that is hurting his own people and get back to governing what was once a beautiful state of California that people are fleeing en masse because of his horrific energy and economic policies that have made the cost of living in California completely out of control.
Yeah, the climate scam's kind of like DEI. It's dead, and it's never coming.
Yes, Karoline expresses what many Californians appear to believe. She argues Gavin Newsom should focus less on attention and more on addressing everyday concerns within the state. That includes confronting the high cost of living that pressures families into difficult financial decisions each month. It also involves reducing excessive bureaucracy that delays progress, increases costs, and limits opportunities for small businesses to grow successfully. She further calls for strengthening stable energy production instead of supporting policies that raise prices and reduce reliability. Most importantly, she emphasizes lowering the tax burden that continues encouraging residents and employers to relocate outside California. Karoline's central point remains straightforward. Effective leadership is not about dramatic speeches or national positioning. It is about improving affordability and long-term stability for ordinary citizens. Until Newsom adjusts his focus toward those practical priorities, she believes population decline will persist and residents will continue facing financial strain. Looking at the broader situation, a pattern emerges. Democrats such as AOC and Gavin Newsom often present explanations and narratives while voters increasingly request measurable outcomes. Karoline Leavitt argues that support for Trump did not grow primarily because of media influence. She contends it expanded because many individuals experience rising costs and uncertainty. She maintains that the DNC's focus on ideological debates and higher taxation has distanced working Americans. Instead of reconsidering strategy, party leaders often maintain their direction and express confusion when support declines. She concludes that unless Democrats address voter frustration directly, political resistance will likely continue developing. And that concludes today's discussion. If you appreciated it, consider liking and subscribing for additional similar content.